Good evening. Welcome to Community Update 313. I'm your host, Michelle White. My co-host here is Robert White, and we're gonna have some fun this evening. We've got a whole new system, and we want you to go to YouTube, like, subscribe, and share. Robert White, how are you this evening?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. What up, though, Detroit? Um, Not home. I'm in Austin, Texas, but I'm always repping for the city. We have a great guy today, Alcott, Germany the second. When I tell you this man is a renaissance man, he does everything from consultant to public speaker to author. This man writes screenplays. Okay, so we're really going to dive into who he is. We have a lot of topics to talk about. I don't want to spoil it, so let's get right to it. Mr. Alcott, Germany. How you doing, sir?
The second.
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on this show. I just couldn't be more excited, and I'm just appreciative that we're on this show, and it's a show based out of the city. I couldn't be more happy and proud about that.
Yes, we're,
Absolutely,
we're
absolutely.
so glad to have you. So let me tell our audience a little bit about you. Alcott Alda Hakima, Germany the second. He's a proud Detroit native that brings over 2 decades of leadership experience uh, across diverse industries, including automotive, consumer products, telecommunications, and financial services. He is having he's worked with renowned companies such as Procter and Gamble, BASF, rocket companies, and Alcott holds a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering from the University of Detroit Mercy and a master's degree in education from the University of Phoenix. And he's the author. You're going to tell us his previous book that he did, he was on our show, and it was Real World 101 Leadership. His first book was Real World 101 Student Guide. And now he's got Real World 505 Leader Guide. Come on and tell us a little bit about this new book, Alcott.
Again, thanks for having me on. I'm just smiling from ear to ear because this is living a dream. Getting to your question, Real World 505 Leader Guide. It's actually a continuation of 101.
Mhm.
Although for those who have not read 101, you don't have to read 101 to pick up on the lessons from 505, but it's really a reflective conversation to really ask the question of what kind of leader do you want to be? And when
Mhm.
you're asking yourself that question, there's some real intense realities that you want to take note of because it will set the stage for what kind of leader you're going to become, how you're going to show up for others, and what's that going to mean, what that will mean for all the people who are looking to you to set the tone.
Hmm.
Yes, yes, that's right.
So,
Go ahead.
looking at as we talk about what a leader, what is a leader to you? What did
Oh,
what is that all encompassing of to say what a leader is?
I love that question, Rob, because it means so much. A leader to me, I just use the word tone setter, but there's a lot of other, adjectives that I could use. And it really is someone who can set the example, but also set others up for success. Not
Hmm.
the kind of person that needs to be the loudest voice in the room and dictate efforts and dictate direction. It's really about how do you galvanize people? How do you bring people together? How do you execute and deliver? And I know I probably use a lot of words just now that sound a little corporatey, but I'm also talking about how you lead in life. And when you're leading in life, whether you're a father, a mentor, a big brother, a big sister, an aunt, an uncle, whoever,
Hmm.
those same philosophies apply. And what you're doing to spread love, to just be a light and tie what I call tying purpose to progress
Mhm.
Hmm.
are the key critical components to what makes a great leader. And to me, those are the kind of attributes you're looking at before you even get into the X's and O's.
So you just said something, okay, and just as a fellow PK, because I saw that your dad was a pastor.
Yes,
But
sir.
I have to also ask because he was a pastor and a Panther, and when
And
I say Panther, I mean a Black Panther.
yes,
So, did that
yes.
leadership skills come from, "Hey, Imma pray for you," but I also will correct you.
I will correct you, and I'll be able to. Um, some people will say call their own shot, but sometimes in leadership, what I say at the end of the book, not to give too much away, sometimes you have to lay it all the line and stand alone, and do what other folks may not think is as popular. And just to sort of piggyback on the comment you made about correcting you, my father actually taught self-defense as a Panther, and
There you go. Well, of course you're gonna listen now.
and so I was also a student of his when he got much older. So he was very, very knowledgeable of the martial arts. And so he did a lot of self defense and teaching in the community as a Panther, as a community activist, which really did lay the groundwork for who we became before he passed away in 2019, becoming a presiding elder in the Fourth Episcopal District of the AME Church.
So one of our listeners has asked, he said, what if someone isn't really interested in becoming a leader, but so does this book also help someone understand what they can expect from a leader?
Yes, it does two things. I love that question, and if we can get that person's name, I definitely like to address them by name as well. But
That is Shay.
Shay, the question you just asked, this is definitely about helping people who want to be leaders, because we are all leaders in our own right. One of the things that we want to call out, that I call out in this book, is don't let someone else determine that you're a leader. You are a leader. You are here for a reason, whether you are a vocal leader, whether you're a leader by action. And so when we get into some questions that we'll probably get to later on in the show, what this book talks about are the philosophies that will allow you to have an awareness on what makes a strong leader. I call it understand, engage, trust, and translate. But in that, I'm not really trying to tell anyone, do it like Alcott. I'm saying these are the guideposts you want to that you want to hold yourself accountable to. I'm sorry. And in that, do it Shay's way. And when you're able to do it your way, that's how we're able to really embrace what makes us different, because the things that make us different are what makes us special as well. So that, to me, this book is totally predicated on aspiring leaders, as we call them, as you would call yourself right now, and those who consider themselves seasoned veterans.
Okay. And you just touched on 4 topics, right? So you said engage, or understand, engage, trust, and translate.
Yes.
Is it in that order, or is it something
Yes.
different, or is it like, okay, so explain the whole thing and how it works?
Yes.
Well, also, before you share that, I like the way you said you have to be a light, and a leader needs to be a servant. And would you say that some people are born leaders and some people have to learn how to become
Yeah.
leaders?
Well, I agree, but I'm going to challenge that in a little bit. I think that there are people who are born to be vocal leaders and have a confidence and a presence about them that allow them to step into that limelight, so to speak, without maybe additional inspiration or additional coaching. Even when you become one,
You
you
still
need to
need
still be
coaching.
pushed, right? Where others who may not be looked upon in that same light, they're still leaders, but they have to lead in a different way. I think some of the more inspirational leaders in my career and in my life were not strong vocal leaders. My father was a strong vocal leader. But when I think about some of the best qualities about leadership that I was able to embrace from my teenage years till now, they were not the most vocal people, and they weren't looked upon as the leader that we sort of stereotypically, put on a pedestal or just in front. And it's just an appreciation that I have for those kind of individuals as well. Getting back to your question, Rob, I did deliberately write these 4 philosophies in that order because they are building blocks one to another. Understand, we know what the term means if you look it up in the dictionary. But when looking at it from a leadership standpoint, it's not about understanding just what's around you or who you're impacting. It's understanding yourself. Understand who you are and what that means. Because we'll say, well, I just want to do me. Okay, I love that. What does that mean? And what does that mean? And another thing that I start off with is called the jerk boss section, and
I love that section in the book, the jerk boss.
that was actually, and I don't know if she knows this. That was inspired by my wife because she knew I was writing this book, and she said, "You know what? Uh, you should try to write something that's really going to grab someone's attention real quick." And
Mhm.
I said, "Okay, let me be a little more direct coming out the gate." And so the jerk boss spectrum is all about understanding that we all have a little bit of jerk in us, and
Mhm.
it's a matter of really establishing for ourselves who do we want to be to lift ourselves and others up. And so understanding really leads us to the question I write towards the end of that first chapter, which is why lead and why you?
Mm.
Because if you can't answer those two questions, you're going to immediately step into an octagon where other people are going to dictate the kind of leader you become. And before you know it, you'll no longer recognize yourself. And so having that understanding is key. Engage is more about that recipe of standing in front of your team and
Mm.
being the one that holds yourself accountable to how your team responds to any type of challenge, even celebrating success. I have this one excerpt in there called Stand in Front but Not in the Way. And that
Mm.
has everything to
I
do
like
with
that.
making certain that you need to be the one accountable to how your team responds to adversity, but don't stand in the way of these other folks behind you who are looking to you to help them grow and become the next leader. And
Mhm.
and that to me gets back to your original question of what makes it. That's that tone setting chapter.
Mhm.
Trust, trust has everything to do with creating and building that glue. That's when we start to talk about diversity. That's when we start to talk about all those different ingredients that really allow for folks to know when you're in the mix, they know you have their back. And I'm telling you, when you establish that, people will go through Hell's Kitchen for you. They will
Mhm.
they will appreciate you when the team has success. They will appreciate you when you acknowledge your own failure. And
Absolutely.
that's the important thing is everybody fails. And what we sometimes do as leaders in any space is we try to hide it. We try to mask it. And so not to eat up too much time, but that's what trust is all about is building that glue and that camaraderie so that we're all in this together and everybody knows it and feels it and it's not just a slogan on the wall. And then translate ties into the communication of it.
Mm.
We all love the term communication, and in this book, I challenge it because there's a difference between communication and translation. And the best example I can give is think about I said this in speaking with some young people about a month ago. I said, think about when if you were in a foreign country and you didn't know the language and you were trying to get home.
Mhm.
I'm telling you, when you're trying to translate, you're going to piece together the language. You know the language they know. You're
Mhm.
going to point. You're going to use body language. You're going
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
do everything at your disposal, to make certain that message sent is also message received. And so, to me, translation and experiences show me that translation is more than just communication. And
Absolutely.
so, those are to me the main philosophies that go into being a strong leader, and how that's done differs from person to person, but those to me are the guideposts.
This sounds like a relationship book because I was like, man, I could use those. I could use all of those, like how to actually say something. Because you said translation is different than communication.
Yep.
Because to your point, especially when we get into men and women, they say that we think
Mm-hmm.
differently and all those different things. Sometimes our communication does not translate the way that we want to because we
100%.
can be thinking right here as opposed to the things around it. That's actually really good. I'm gonna use some of that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a saying that I've read that says, know those that labor among you. And
Yep.
you were saying how you have to, if you're the leader of a particular team, you have to know the different personalities of the people that are working on as a part of your team. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
someone might be strong, someone might be a crybaby, somebody else might be have some health challenges, and you have to A quality of workplace. When I used to work at General Motors, we had a training that would teach you have to have a quality of workplace in the workplace,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that is, whether it's working from home or a local team or in a building. You
Mm-hmm.
have to, as you're saying, understand and know the people as best you can without delving too deep. Some
And
people might want to sit and talk with you a little longer about challenges. You have to know how to be empathetic but still not take up the whole day.
yeah, I couldn't have said that better, Michelle. When you're trying to accomplish anything with a team or a
Mhm.
family or a group of people, not only do you need to know the ultimate goal for the team, but you need to understand how that win benefits everybody on that team. And it
Mhm.
will benefit people differently in different ways. Why? Because we're all different and we all have different life journeys. We all have different perceptions of what success is. We all have different goals for ourselves. The skill and the talent that comes with strong leadership is how do you bring all that together? and
Hmm.
and the willingness to do that, the willingness to teach, the willingness to develop, and also be vulnerable, and be
Mhm.
able to say, you know what, talk to me, teach me. If it's only one directional, you're not leading, because
Exactly.
that's getting back to the topic of trust versus control. It's
Mhm.
Hmm.
There's a difference, and there's a talent, and then there's humility that has to go into it, and so you really are putting yourself out there when you decide to lead in any capacity, and understanding the people who you're around, whether it's friends, family, or coworkers. That's a key ingredient. And if you choose not to do it, just live with it,
Yeah.
and understand that there's something that comes with not doing that work as well.
As a consultant, I always tell people, listen, you need to know who you are before
Yep.
you know how to lead, because I have to know who I need to be to the
Mm-hmm.
person I'm talking to. It,
Mm-hmm.
there are different parts of you that I need to display, and I go off colors. There's a guy named Mark Casetta who does living in full color, and it's red, yellow, blue, and green. The red people are, very, very direct. They have a certain
Yep.
personality. Blue people are just here for fun. The yellow people are, super emotional. So you need to watch what you say, how you say it.
Yep.
It's all in how you said it, not really even what you say at all. And then you
Mm-hmm.
have the green people that are overly analytical, right? And they're
Yep.
gonna process and take time everything you say. Well, we all have those traits in us, and I need to know who I am first, so I know how it comes off. If I'm really red, everything to a yellow person is like, "Oh my god, that's so much. Relax, Robert."
Yep.
So I have to kick in some of my yellow so I can match the other person that's with me. But you
And to
brought
your
something
point,
up.
I'm
Go
sorry,
ahead.
not to cut you off. It's And for that to work, you have to respect all four colors, and
Exactly.
that's the beauty of it. I think one of the biggest compliments I've ever received, and it was something that I got, a text message I got from a leader who that I worked with. She was a peer, and she resigned from the company to go focus on family. And I still have this text message to this day. She reached out to me, and she just wanted to say goodbye because she was leaving the company. But what she also said was, working with you showed me that I didn't have to give up who I was to be a leader.
Wow.
And that to me is why I do what I do. And that is why I wrote this. And I always knew that I would, but there are so many people like Shay who are trying to figure it out. And sometimes they're asking the question, and the question is falling on deaf ears. And
Mhm.
so what'll happen is it'll compel them to try to just scrap and claw and create this definition from folks who may not have their best interests at heart for whatever reason. They're just not the priority. I'm not saying they're trying to maliciously do anything negative to you. You're just not the priority. And when that happens, I've seen a lot of great aspiring leaders just were not using their talent to the level that they believed they could. And I knew they could as well.
And so, before we get into, because I have a few other questions that quitting your job to go start this stuff, but
I can come back too.
I really
We
want
definitely
you,
want you to come back.
I really want you to get into this next topic. Is what's the difference between trust and control as it concerns diversity, or should I say, pertains to diversity?
I love this. So there's an excerpt in my book, not only with this exact title, but I want to get into specifically the diversity component. where we as people often look at diversity. Some people use the acronym DEI as like this icing on the cake. And let's understand, if you value diversity as it pertains to leadership, it's not icing, it's the ingredient in the cake. It's a
Mm.
part of the batter. And so when we talk about trust versus control, control is saying, especially when it comes to leadership and diversity, I have the answer. I have people like me in the room to support my mindset,
Mhm.
and we're going to move together collectively in unison because we're all thinking the same. When you really start looking at the data, those are a lot of those companies don't fare well in the long run, especially when you're trying to innovate in this
Mhm.
world that is totally, in a lot of ways, driven by technology. So
Right.
when you start to look at trust, you're putting, especially as it pertains to diversity, you're
Mhm.
bringing in non-like-minded people to challenge your thinking and who also don't look at like you. Now, let me help me understand what it means for people. It's not about a quota system. I'm very passionate about this topic.
Mhm.
When we start talking about multiple cultures represented in a room,
Mhm.
it has to do with the fact that in their culture, regardless of who they are, I'm an African American, a white American versus someone who's um, of Indian or Spanish descent or Mexican
Mhm.
descent, their life journey has allowed them to look at problems differently.
Mhm.
When you have multiple people in the room who can look at problems differently, that's
Yeah.
when you get the best stuff.
Yeah.
Because when you're trying to create a dominant product or
Mhm.
a dominant service or just a dominant mindset, if everybody's looking like you and thinking like you're missing out on the rest of how the rest of the world thinks.
Exactly.
And so
Exactly.
trust allows you to bring in these other cultures, these other thoughts, these
Mm.
other mindsets, so that you can challenge one another and say our strength is our differences.
So
Because
then my
go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So my question for you, I have 2 questions just to
Hmm.
play the other side of this room where I say, well, what if my preconceived notion of you is already negative? How do
Yep.
I get around that?
Yeah. I love that. I love
I do
that.
too.
It's it goes back to the understanding step.
Mhm.
What kind
Hmm.
of leader do you want to be? Do you
Hmm.
want to be a leader that's led by preconceived notions? Because think about it. Where did those notions come from if you've never met me? They
Mhm.
had to have come from somebody else. And why are you allowing someone else to garner your thinking?
Mhm.
And so even if that's basically like me saying, you know what, because I had a bad experience with a certain race
Mhm.
or a certain gender, I no longer trust that race or gender, and they may have the best idea in the world. I
Yeah.
am selling myself short because I'm also saying that I don't make mistakes at all,
Mhm.
and people who look like me don't. And I'm also limiting my ability to appreciate innovation, creativity, and I'm also putting myself on a pedestal as a
Mhm.
leader, which keeps people from coming together. So, what tone am I setting? Because all that's going to do is replicate itself. And when they look at you, they're going to look at you and say, is that the recipe for good leadership?
Mhm.
And that's why we have toxicity in a lot of our organizations and in throughout our society, because we have a lot of tone setters that take their own prejudices and biases and
Mhm.
and go to a place where they shouldn't. Because here's another thing I wanted to hit on before we.
Go ahead.
The next question is,
Go ahead.
everybody has bias.
Mhm.
Everybody.
Yeah.
So the
That's true.
moment you decide to deny your bias, you're not only insulting yourself, you're insulting everyone around you, because you're also insulting the humanity that makes you you. And
Mm.
so when people say, "Oh, I don't have an issue with such and such," or "I don't have an issue with such and such," "I don't have any biases. I don't see color. I don't see anything." Well, you do, and you have biases. And if when you don't acknowledge them, you're
Mhm.
actually being a hypocrite. And so what you want to do as a leader is embrace the fact that you have biases and you're willing to be challenged on
So one of the things that I feel like I've seen this, and I've been privileged enough to be in multiple rooms. And I always tell people I grew up on both sides of the track. Right.
it.
I got the hood, and I also got the suburbs.
Yep.
Right. So when you have both of those, I've seen this thing where it is called diversity, but there's no actual diversity speaking for the table. They just allow you to sit at the table, but they don't give you a microphone, which I
Mhm.
think is a lot different, because to me, that's diversity. There's a voice for you to represent you at the table to help make decisions. So, what do you say to the person that says, well, this is a little bit, I guess, politically incorrect, so I won't say that, but I'll say too many coaches, not enough players,
Yeah.
right? And so they
Yeah.
go, you know what? Well, we don't need a whole bunch of coaches. We just need you to play your role and be
Yep.
quiet. So, what do you
And
Well,
say?
I think that some of that is when we have these cultural diversity workshops and all of that, it's imperative that we learn to understand the differences in our cultures. An
mhm.
Indian has certain cultures that a black person or a brown person doesn't have. And we have to learn to understand there are some cultures within the Caucasian community that black people don't have. For instance, they can cuss out their kids. Black people, that's a no-no. You know, there's some cultures where they don't really deal with women a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
But when you learn to understand that and know the gift that you have and know how to balance that with the culture that you're working with, you will be more effective. I
Yes.
used to have Chaldeans don't necessarily do a lot of business with women, and particularly women of color. Some of my best clients were of that descent because I learned how to balance it. And that's important within the workplace. And the word term I was trying to think of is quality of work life. And
Yep.
part of having quality of work life, a person of color might come in a little late. Now, that's not a good thing, but don't beat them down because that's a part of their culture. That's not a good thing. But that CP time is real. I'm not saying
Okay,
that
so
they have to work on
let me
that.
say that I also don't agree with that. I
Uh,
think that, I
Yeah.
mean, not
It's a
that I
reality,
know that
though.
it happens, but I think that is a part of the preconceived notion
It
that we
is.
the
Correct.
that rhetoric, 'cause that's not everybody.
No,
I've seen people that are not black be late all the time. And
right.
so it is a thing that we perpetuate and say that we've now coined, but we really only coined the negative, and we add to it, right? And I get it within the culture, but there's certain things. It's like when I tell my kids, "Hey, we have conversations within the house, but they don't leave this house." Right. And so there are certain things that we know within the culture, and every culture has it. And I'm not saying, because I've heard this, people go, "Oh yeah, well, so then you say this at home." Well, no, I'm not saying, say something that's obscene or egregious or unfair. That's not what I'm saying. Train your children up in the way that they should go. When they get older, they won't depart. What I'm
Part.
saying ultimately is that you have certain things where, hey, this is just a family thing where we will joke on each other. But then when you go to school, it's like, you know what? This can be considered bullying. So don't do it outside of the home. If I talk about you, if I'm go, oh, you stink, go take a shower. I tell my kid, you know, 14, 12 years old, all kids are dirty. They never want to take showers, and they have to ask you, you have to go, hey, why don't you want to be clean? But that's just the joke within being a parent, as opposed to going to a school now. And now maybe there's somebody that you aren't used to, doesn't walk, talk, act, or think like you. And you say the same thing thinking it's funny. We go, no, 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 no. You can't do that there, because now
You
that
can't
is
say
not.
you stink.
I mean, it's
Well,
a
I've had to
funny
pull
thing. But
people aside from time to time and have a little pull their coattail. And one gentleman I can remember, he said, "Oh, I thought I took a bath today." He smelled as if he had not taken a bath in many days.
Well, and that's what goes back to two pieces that I'll take from the book:
Mhm,
understanding and laying it on the line. Because
Mhm.
I think that there's this aspect too of like once you get the title of anything, father,
mhm,
CEO, VP, whatever,
Mhm.
that now you've arrived and now it's easy. So, Rob, getting back to your point about the room, and it also ties into what you guys are just saying,
mhm.
is as a leader, you are a disruptor. That's the calling. So I have been in rooms where if I allowed myself to just say nothing,
Mm-hmm.
then that's that would have been the status. That would have
Mm-hmm.
been the status. We had, I won't get into too many details of a particular room that I was in, but it was around the time of the George Floyd murder. And
Mm-hmm.
we talked about different things. There was a whole room of opinions. And
Yeah.
understandably so. It's important, and we're talking ministry here in a little bit. Everybody has a reason to think why they think. Now, we may not agree with it, but everybody has a reason, and there is a respect we need to have when it comes to that because
I
they're
totally
products of
agree.
their environment and what they've been exposed to.
Hmm.
But getting back to your point, Rob, of like, well, just being in the room.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm in the room, and I was the only one at the time,
Mm-hmm.
my response was, "We're not doing that."
Yeah.
No, and I said that to a lot of folks who, and I said, "Now I'm not saying that to show how black I am. Let
Mm-hmm.
me use this as an opportunity to educate." And
Hmm.
so one of the things, and I'll just use George Floyd as an example because it's unfortunately low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
I said, you know what's unfortunate? I said this to this room. I said, you know what's unfortunate to me when the video came out? I said, my response to them was, I said, it wasn't that a black man was murdered by a police officer. I said, the first thing that went through my mind, unfortunately, because of my life journey was, wow, y'all needed a video to understand that this goes on.
Yeah.
I
Man.
said,
Okay.
and
Go
so
ahead.
in that point, what the point I want to make in that, Rob, is they were not going to make room for me to speak. I
Mm-hmm.
had to take it. And when I
Hmm.
took it, it could have resulted in that being my last day working there. And
Yeah.
guess what? I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And so that's the charge that comes with leadership. But if you have the right purpose on your heart, then it's okay. When you don't have that compass for you and who
Mm-hmm.
you are and who you want to be, then you don't know what the next move will mean for you as it pertains to your own psyche, your own self-esteem, and your own awareness of where you want to take your life.
Mm-hmm.
And you just can't give that equity away because that's all we have as people.
I think it's especially being here. One of the things, or being in Austin, Texas now for since 2021, and it's a lot different than Detroit.
Yeah.
Completely different from Detroit, especially when it comes to representation. And this is one of the few times where I think I've actually had to explain, um, hey, compassion is for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Empathy is for everybody. I may not like how you lived your life. I
Right.
may have not liked what you did, but I don't care if it's a George Floyd. I don't care if it's Charlie Kirk.
Charlie
If
Kirk.
if
Mhm.
if somebody is killed in cold blood
Right.
and you can see that they like, hey, that you didn't have to go to. I don't care what you say. I may disagree, but you have the right to say what you want to say. Or if somebody is now has a knee in the neck and they can argue, they say, hey, well, there was drugs in the system. So it
Right.
doesn't mean that he's supposed to die. And cops do. I'm not saying all cops, but a lot of times we see in a lot of urban areas where they
Mm-hmm.
will, you know, fudge the game a little bit and say, "Oh, well, there were drugs," and they drop a thing of coke somewhere. It's like, okay, well, don't what did they say? Dave Chappelle. They sprinkle some crack on him and go, "Well, he was a drug addict." Wait, no, no
Well, what
matter
about the
what it
young
is,
man that just got hung on a tree at the Delta
he
University,
was hung on
Mississippi?
a tree.
Tyler. Are we hanging people again now? And then his legs were broke, the arms were broke, and it was stated that it was he killed
No
himself.
foul play. Yeah,
No foul
and
play. Seriously?
Yeah.
and for me again, because we don't know all the extra details
I
and
know somebody
algorithm.
didn't break their arms and legs and then hang themselves. I
Absolutely,
know that.
absolutely.
That doesn't
But
even make sense.
what I will say is that algorithm and media are a real thing. Whatever
Yeah.
you look up most, you will find the most, right? And so when you're in there, I've had friends on both sides that are like, "Hey, all I saw was great things," and somebody goes, "All I saw was bad things," right? And they kind of fit the narrative of whoever it is. But at the end of the day, the same way that we look at one person, I gotta give that same grace to the next person and go, "Hey." Should
Yep.
they have died for that though?
Yep.
The
Yeah, I thought
answer
that was
should
horrible that the man was shot in the neck, and I saw a picture of it. And I've seen a lot of people that love what he was saying, even people of color, that and particularly Christian people that loved all that he was stating. And on the other side, you saw a lot of what he was stating that people were very upset. And how can I have sympathy? I'm sorry he died, but oh well. So
I'm
you see both sides of it. Yes.
agree
I'm
with that.
smiling a little bit because we're also talking a little bit about 101 in this
Mhm.
Uh
regard.
huh.
And in
Mhm.
101, the big focus here is about educating yourself. And
Mhm.
what what I have learned in my research and what I share a lot with young people is the only thing that has changed in human behavior is technology. We now, at the
Mhm.
click of the button, can see love and hatred in every corner of the world, which wasn't the capability
And it
in
was
hundreds of
always there. We can just see
right,
it now. It was
exactly.
always there.
And so I don't want to sound callous, but I will say that when I do hear news of different kinds of heinous crimes and things of that nature, I can't get surprised because read anything, do your research, read read your Bible, read whatever. You will see that this world is also just as much filled with hatred as it is with love.
Mhm.
And so the fight here when it comes to the ministry of this book, the things
Mhm.
that we say, this show and this platform as well,
Mhm.
is not only to educate and inform, but also to understand and help others understand the art of compassion and what it means to support and combat that hate with love and empathy, and know that there are so many different things that are attacking the minds of our young people and our elders
Mhm.
that we have and we can try our best to try to make sense of it, but
Mhm.
it's more to me more worthwhile, or there's more benefit in putting energy towards responding with a sense of love and empathy and education so that these things don't become the only reality that future generations believe are the
Mhm.
case. And right now, that is the fight. And we're next up, in my opinion. It's what are we doing to expose the fact that hatred will try to have its day, but as Bob Marley will say, what better way to, hate doesn't take a day off, why should I? And so that is how we combat it. We combat it with informing ourselves that that's a part of the fight, unfortunately, and that we can combat that by showing love, empathy, and support and challenging our laws when we think that they're not where they need to be in support of the society we're in.
So
And I think,
is that what made you write the book? Because I've also heard that you decided to, leave your job, but you also thought about quitting before that. Is that
Yeah.
what led to that? Because somewhere along you said, well, you didn't even want to be an author. And I
Yeah.
go, not with all the skill and knowledge and
and your book is wonderful,
yeah.
Thank you.
both of
Thank
them.
you. So it's a great question, Rob. So I talk a little bit about that in the 505 preface. Um,
Mhm.
so when I wrote 101, which is the student guide, was all about how to use education to enhance your power of choice. That was inspired by young adults I was talking with and saying, hey, we're having some awesome, we're talking about students who really weren't considered model students, but they were
Mhm.
so engaged when we started to talk through the connections between what they see in life and the subjects they were being asked to learn. 505, it really was the same journey of the things that I was having, the conversations that I was having throughout my life, specifically my career, where we were all first I was the young guy trying to figure it out with other aspiring leaders.
Mhm.
Then I became sort of the SME, not knowing that I was the SME. And there was such a moral fabric that
Mhm.
these leaders that I was talking to, leaders
And
by title,
just to pause you, okay, for our listeners, SME is subject matter expert.
subject matter
He
expert. Yes.
Because he's the educated one using
Yes.
all the big, he's okay.
Thank you
But
for
no,
calling out
but no,
that
go ahead.
acronym.
And action.
But
There you go.
it's putting that it's putting that purpose in the progress. I started to learn more and more. So when I wrote 101, I'd already thought that I was going to write 505 like 3 to 5 years later because I saw the need. And I'm like, wow, if I'm having these same questions and now I'm starting to be, I'm actually coming across other leaders with the same questions. And I know that I'm helping them, in these abstract spaces of just, around the water cooler, in the office, kicking it outside the office at like a barbecue or a dinner or something like that. And there's this appreciation and this need of like, wow, I'm glad we had this conversation because I was really losing it. So Rob, I was living all of these moments and saying, wow, there's a need for this. And I believe I've been called to paint this picture. Lo and behold, exactly, I wrote 505 exactly 15 years after 101. I did not plan that. It just happened that way. When I started writing and I just did the math, I'm like, wow. And what the amount of knowledge that I had amassed over that 15-year span made me that much more effective and impactful. And I've affected so many lives in my career. And I'm like, I got to get this out. I just feel like I'm not being who I am if I don't. And that's really what
Was it like fire shut up in your bones?
it was. It was. It was like,
Alcott, I love where you're saying here in one of the excerpts in Real World 505 Leader Guide. You said the topic we're going to discuss is leadership, whether for yourself or for others. Leadership is an unavoidable responsibility we all must deal with, no matter the personality type. We must deal with it, no matter the personality type. And that would help people not to get run over in life, get depressed in life, finding out where their skill set is, where their leadership ability is in whatever manner within their being.
you bring
It's-
up a great point with that, Michelle, in this regard. And we hit on this earlier in our discussion.
Mhm,
For all those out there who believe that they're introverts, I am
mhm.
one as well. And so you're looking at an introvert.
I
I
can't
do.
tell. No.
Exactly. A lot of people think I'm crazy when I say that. I do enjoy being by myself, watching cartoons and anime and all that cool stuff.
Mhm,
That's why I was able to write a screenplay on it was an animated miniseries
Okay.
that did actually get looked at by DreamWorks, by the way.
Oh,
Wow.
And
wonderful.
so I have those same idiosyncrasies, and I think it's important for folks to know that just because you're not the outspoken leader,
Hmm.
then uh, that doesn't make you not a leader. I was in another radio interview and someone said the same thing of like, Alcott, you don't sound like an introvert. I said that. And I said, what made me start talking in the way I talk today? I started to think about what would happen if I said nothing. And the
Mm,
chaos that was around me growing up in the areas before I made it out to the suburbs is what
mm,
inspired me, along with my father and my parents, of course, my mother as well. When I saw the power of voice,
mm,
that's what compelled me to speak. It wasn't because I wanted to. It's not because I think it's all that fun. It's the purpose of change falls on everybody. And
Mm-hmm.
this is my journey that I'm sharing with everybody.
mhm.
There's that saying that says change is going to happen whether you participate or not.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and
So true.
you seem to have, as we're wrapping up, and I wish we could go longer. You seem to have a better grasp on life more than most. Where does that come from?
Oh, thank you.
Great question.
It starts with my parents.
Hmm.
Um, and what they've done for me. My father did pass away in 2019, and he was the I call him the blueprint, the Renaissance, the original Renaissance man. My mother, she taught me how to use my heart, and my dad taught me how to use my head. But more so than anything else, Rob, my faith, and I will never ever shy away from helping folks understand who holds my tomorrow. And I have said that even in the workplace. I'm like,
I like
why I have no concerns? Because the one who holds my tomorrow is nowhere in this building. I said, so I think That really is to me the foundation. And I also empathize with folks who were not exposed to those same ingredients. And I think that when you do have the fortune, are fortunate enough to have that in your life from the moment you were born, you also have a charge to share that because uh, the Lord comes to you in more than just one way. And maybe I'm the one that's being used as an instrument in that way. And but that's where it starts. That's where it starts for me, Rob. And to me, that has blossomed into who I am today and why I'm thankful that I have the family that I have and the life that I have. And I definitely can look back on my life and really be thankful for that.
Well,
That's
you know what,
wonderful.
we thank you for being on here. I already have. If you want to stay connected with Alcott, he's on Facebook, IG, LinkedIn. Alcott Germany the second. He also has a website, alcottgermany2nd.com. It's a very unique name, so it's only going to be one of them, right? But I do have a final question for you. Something that we're trying out. What are your top 3 places to go in the 313?
Ooh,
Yeah.
it's
313.
yeah.
Detroit.
In the 313. So I grew up in the medical. Look, I'm a homebody, so I love being. I'm going over my cousins and my brother's house. That's
Okay,
really my favorite spots. But if you want to talk about, I think that downtown Detroit, I would put up against any city in the country, and I've been to
great,
most. I,
great.
so that's definitely a spot um, in the 313. Man, I mean, there's so many other spots on the east side and west side, but that's probably where I would just say that I love being around my family. Downtown is awesome, but I don't want to diminish the fact that you know get to know your neighborhoods, get to know your communities, get to know your local bookstores. Those to me are awesome places to go as well. I wish I can give you some fancy clubs and all that kind of stuff. You get out there, you'll know. You
Now, give
if
me
you
the good
know, you know.
bookstore.
I'm not gonna put them out there like that. Go to Page's bookstore on Evergreen and Grand River.
I
You
like
know,
it. I like it.
yeah, do something like that, and you'll see that there's a lot of community energy out there that's all filled with positivity and love. That's where I like to be. I'm either at home with family, or I'm in the community just having a good time, or of course downtown.
I love it. I love it. Well, Alcott, like I said, thank you so much for being on. We have to have you back on whenever we have
Yes.
time and availability,
I
so we
can't
can
wait.
finish this after I read the book. Uh,
I'm
you
gonna
got anything
mail
to
it to
say?
you. And go ahead and go out and get Alcott Germany the second book. This was his showing of this book, Real World 505 Leader Guide. Go get your copy today.
All right, you all. Well, thank you for being with us again. This is Rob and Michelle on Community Update. Alcott, thank you for being here, man. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
y'all. Later.
Have a good night.